I'm speaking softly because we're in a moment of prayer. The people gathered here today is Saturday. A nun and a woman, a believer, are saying the Hail Mary prayer. They say many Hail Marys. Many people with olive branches came to join. Many families are arriving all the time. It's a beautiful church. And up there we can see the image of the Madonna of Monte Iberico, Our Lady of Monte Iberico, which came about after the apparition. She also has up there, just like Our Lady of Aparecida, Our Lady of Monte Iberico has a crown. And it's a very special crown, a gold crown, which has even been displayed in some museums. Well, I'm not going to stop talking because I've already talked a lot. The prayer continues. This is the moment to follow along here.
It was the 7th at 9 in the morning. A peasant woman named Vicenza Pazzini was going to take food to her husband. Sometimes she appears surrounded by angels. At other times, she communicates with the witnesses in the local language or through written messages. In certain places, the visits always happen on the same date, like in Fatima, where it is said that Mary appeared to 3 shepherd children, always on the 13th throughout 1917. I'm in northern Italy in the Veneto region, and I'm going to tell you now. The one about the apparition of Our Lady in the city of Vicenza, the Madonna of Monte Iberico. And in the Veneto region, there's also the wonderful Venice where I went recently, Padua, where I went to tell the story of St. Anthony. And before coming to Vicenza, I also went to Verona, the romantic place that inspired the classic story of Romeo and Juliet. But the time has come. Vicenza has been a World Heritage Site since 1994, thanks to the work of a great name in Renaissance architecture, Andrea Palladio. All over Vicenza, there are beautiful projects by Palladio, such as the city's own basilica. At the highest point, Mount Berico, stands the other basilica, which predates Palladio's and is actually not just one, but the combination of 2 churches from different periods, built on the site of an apparition of Our Lady. But the richness we see in this landscape today doesn't tell the story of misery and death that happened in the Middle Ages. At the beginning of the 14th century, there was a food shortage crisis, and with it came famine in much of Europe. And a few decades later, a plague epidemic swept across the continent, killing at least 50 million people. And that's according to the most conservative estimates. Vicenza was forced to seek help and refuge from a wealthy neighbor and became part of the Republic of Venice, sealing a submission that would last for 4 centuries. It was March of 1426. Let me invite you to travel back in time with me. It was the 7th day at 9 a.m. A peasant woman named Vicenza Pazzini was on her way to bring food to her husband. Her husband's name was Francesco, and he was working nearby, taking care of the vineyards on a hill here in the city of Vicenza, Monteberico, where the sanctuary now stands. A very beautiful woman appeared to her and spoke in a rather firm manner. Don't be afraid, Vicenza. I am the mother of Jesus who died crucified to save humanity. Go and tell the people of Vicenza that I want a church to be built here in my honor. And only then will you be freed from the plague. Pass my orders on to them. If they don't obey, the plague will not end. As proof of my determination, the apparition continued, dig into these barren stones and a spring of pure water will gush forth. In the end, according to Vicenza's account, Our Lady marked the exact spot where the church should be built with olive branches. Well, now you know that I'm at the site of the apparition here in Vicenza. A few days later, Vicenza told the city's bishop what she had witnessed, but he didn't believe her story. Not even the mayor, no one believed her. They thought she was out of her mind. Meanwhile, the bubonic plague kept ravaging the population. The plague is a disease caused by a bacterium transmitted by fleas that infest rats. At the time, it was devastating because of the terrible hygiene conditions in which most of humanity lived, and also because antibiotics had not been invented yet. But for Vicenza Pazzini, the deaths were also caused by the people's disbelief in the apparition of Our Lady that she had witnessed. There has been a carnival here for centuries, the famous Venice Carnival, right? Today this is a carnival mask. But at that time it was something similar to this, the mask of the so-called plague doctor. He was the most feared person. If we were to compare, it's like saying it was as if death itself was knocking on people's doors. Because when this doctor arrived, usually he wasn't bringing the cure. He came to find out who was sick, to keep count, to inform the government, the authorities, and also to know who had died. Usually when someone showed up wearing a mask like that, it meant more people were dying in the houses in that area. Another 2 years went by and nothing happened. There was no sign of the church being built as Our Lady had requested during the apparition. The people here were becoming more and more miserable and sick. The bubonic plague wouldn't stop. Then, on August 1st, 1428, Vicenza Pazzini had a second vision. This time it was in the city, in the middle of the street. In front of what she claimed was the apparition of Our Lady, Vicenza began to scream, and she said that the mother of Jesus had appeared there, right in front of her. In the apparition, Mary once again asked for the church to be built. Otherwise, the plague would continue killing the city's population. The population of Vicenza finally became convinced that the apparition was real and began building a small church that same August. According to the reports, as soon as the construction began, the cases of plague stopped, and the sick got better soon after. Until finally the bubonic plague pandemic ended. Little by little the reports spread throughout the city, then across the entire region. This drew the attention of the church authorities, who proceeded to investigate the apparition properly, not only by listening to the testimonies, but also by conducting verifications, following all the necessary procedures, until the apparition here in Vicenza was considered legitimate. The chapel that the faithful began to build in August 1428 still exists, and it was soon expanded until it became this Gothic-style church. Tradition says that the place where the image is located is the exact spot where the mother of Jesus appeared to the peasant woman Vicenza in 1426. A few years later, the chapel came under the care of the Order of the Servants of Mary, who are still responsible for the place today, and then it started to be expanded. One of the additions is this room, the former refectory of the Friars of the Servants of Mary, which since 1572 has housed a work by the Renaissance painter Paolo Veronese, The Supper of St. Gregory the Great. In it, St. Gregory, who was pope between the years 590 and 604, receives 12 disciples for a supper, and to his surprise he discovers Jesus Christ himself among them. It measures more than 8.5 meters by almost 5 meters in height. Oil on canvas, and this painting was commissioned to be placed exactly in this spot. Well, if you don't remember, Paolo Veronese is the author of a gigantic work that I love, The Wedding at Cana. The painting is at the Louvre Museum in Paris, and it depicts the first miracle of Jesus, according to the Gospel of John. In 1630, a little over 200 years after the apparition, the authorities of Vicenza decided to build a second church attached to the first one. Side by side, you can see the differences in architectural styles. In 1904, Pope Pius X elevated the sanctuary to the status of minor basilica. A little later, during World War I, the sanctuary of the Madonna of Monte Iberico was the place from where enemy troop movements were monitored. The square with the Italian flag and the tributes to the combatants only appeared after the war. The city of Vicenza is now preparing to celebrate the 600th anniversary of the apparition of Mary here in March 2026. Phenomena like this keep happening, and more apparitions of Our Lady are being reported all over the world. According to some statistics, throughout history more than 20,000 have been reported. The first of them happened while the mother of Jesus was still alive. The Vatican did not recognize this one. It was the best documented and most thoroughly analyzed period by the church authorities, who are increasingly thorough in their analyses and conclusions. Even while these conclusions are not published, what happens is that no one takes away people's faith, especially those who experienced it, those who heard about it, or those who make pilgrimages. The devotees who come from many places to see the many apparitions of Our Lady reported all over the world. Which of them will one day actually be considered apparitions? Well, it takes time for us to know.